Both.
Here we go. Oh, now they got the handbrake.
This is going to be a wild show.
Talk about blood being spilled. Actual blood.
Here's Schultz as well.
It's a badge of honor to be a goon.
Still throwing punches.
We loved to be hated. They were despicable.
A disgrace to hockey.
We don't have to apologize to nobody.
They were our guys. This team unified a city.
Born in the frozen heart of winter and bred of Canadian grit, the game of hockey can be traced to the early 1800s. As an organized endeavor, the sport reached its golden age in the 25-year period between 1942 and 1967, when all of 6 teams made up the National Hockey League. The NHL enjoyed a small but passionate following, as the original 6 preserved the game's unique blend of grace and force, while respecting its code of aggression. But in an effort to expand Canada's national pastime into a nationally televised American pursuit, the Lords of the Game introduced 6 new stateside teams in 1967. Soon, to the disgust of hockey purists, one of these fledgling franchises turned their sacred sport into a savage spectacle. And in seizing the game's holy grail, these bullies would bloody the face of the National Hockey League. But their improbable story began as a risky investment.
I learned that the league was expanding, and I felt that Philadelphia would be a great place for one of the expansion teams.
And they had these grand plans. They were going to build this new building, the Spectrum. We all laughed at them. Who are these guys? Not one of them, I think, had really ever been in a hockey rink in their entire life. A bunch of business guys from Philadelphia.
We went around to the various banks, and they were totally disinterested.
What is it, soccer? And we said, no, it's hockey. And they said, well, hockey will never go over in Philadelphia.
Another sort of fell asleep during our presentation. But the last bank we went to, Gerard Trust, fortunately the vice president, had played hockey at Harvard and loved hockey and had a lot of faith in what we were doing, and we got the loan.
After securing the $2 million expansion fee in February of 1966, the Philadelphia Flyers were officially welcomed to the NHL. Also newly minted were the St. Louis Blues, Pittsburgh Penguins, Minnesota North Stars, California Seals, and Los Angeles Kings.
Philadelphia Flyers. Philadelphia claims Bernie Perron.
With their first pick in the 1967 expansion draft, the Flyers selected Bernie Perron, a young French-Canadian goaltender left unprotected by the Boston Bruins. Joining Perron on the team's inaugural roster were players also discarded by the original 6. And to many of them, heading to Philadelphia was a fate far worse than rejection.
The guy come by and he says, I just heard your name on the radio. I hear you've been drafted by Philadelphia. He says, what? What are you talking about? He says, yeah. I didn't know I wasn't protected by Boston. So talk about disappointment.
Starting all over again with an expansion team did not really thrill me.
First of all, I had to go look on the map and see where the heck Philadelphia was.
We're coming over the old Penrose Avenue Bridge. And on the right-hand side, there's a machine there. I asked the bus driver, I said, what's that machine doing? He says, oh, that's grinding up body parts. What the hell am I doing here?
People didn't know what hockey was. People had no idea what this sport, skates.
They had a reception at City Hall for them, and they put them in open convertibles for a ride down Broad Street. There were no more than 20 people on the parade route.
People were wondering who in the heck we were and what was going on.
He saw somebody flip the bird at them, and he heard one other guy yell from the sidewalk, "You'll be in Baltimore by Christmas."
What the hell are we getting ourselves into here?
Though evidence of its role in the nation's birth was at every turn, the Philadelphia at which these young Canadians had arrived bore little resemblance to the history book version of the city. It was a hard scrabble beer and a hoagie kind of town. Heavily defined by close-knit ethnic neighborhoods and a working-class population set in its ways. Philly no longer appeared to be a place where new ideas took flight, particularly something as absurd as hockey. But there it was, in a state-of-the-art arena on South Broad Street.
Bill Sutherland scored the goal to win the first game at the Spectrum 1-0 before 7,000 people in what Bill Putnam, the team's president, described as the worst hockey game ever played.
It took a little while for the players to get to know each other. Once we did,
We beat Montreal, we beat Boston.
And then one weekend in February, they swept Toronto and Chicago back-to-back at the Spectrum. And that's when the crowds went from 4 digits to 5 digits.
Our fans took to it at that point, and it built a momentum.
shortly thereafter, the roof blew off, so it kind of interrupted our first season.
The high winds which halted work on the roof yesterday made the job difficult.
55 games into their first season, severe winds sent pieces of the Spectrum roof up into the air, and their schedule along with it. Forced to play their remaining home games on the road, the Vagabond Flyers showed their resolve. With nimble skating and strong goaltending, the Keith Allen-led club finished one game below 500, enough for first place in the weak Western Division, which contained all 6 expansion teams. They'd again qualify for the playoffs in year 2, but Philly's first forays into postseason play sent a shiver down the city's spine.
The Flyers were bludgeoned in 2 successive playoff years against the St. Louis Blues. Noel Picard and the Plager brothers terrorized the Flyers and broke legs intentionally and bloodied and bludgeoned the Flyers.
Claude Laforge got beat up pretty badly by Noel Picard.
He cold-cocked him from behind. Broke his cheekbone, knocked out 5 or 6 teeth, fractured his eye socket. He went down in a heap of blood. And I remember Ed Snyder saying, that will never happen again.
We realized that we would have to become tougher, stronger, and bigger, and we may not be able to win a lot of games as we're growing, but we certainly didn't have to get beat up. So we decided that no team would ever intimidate us ever again, and we conducted our drafts and we conducted our philosophy in that direction.
Still battered from back-to-back beatings by the Blues, the Flyers brass attended the 1969 amateur draft with a bigger, tougher purpose in mind. Over 12 feet and nearly 400 pounds combined, 5th and 6th round picks Dave Schultz and Don Selesky fit the new Flyer mold. But the fate of the franchise was sealed earlier in the draft. Philly took a flyer on a player thought to be damaged goods.
Bobby Clarke had diabetes, and I think most of the scouts knew that, and they were worried about his stamina.
Every team in the league passed up Bobby Clarke at least once. Several passed him up twice, and at least one passed him up 3 times before the Flyers took him in the 2nd round.
Mr. Snyder called a doctor in Philadelphia who was a diabetic specialist and asked him. The doctor assured him that if I lived like a diabetic is supposed to, that I'd be able to play.
Here's a little kid that shaved with a Kleenex, and you knew he was going to be a leader right off the get-go.
Despite Clark's solid rookie season, the Flyers regressed in their 3rd year, failing to make the playoffs with just 17 wins. 2 more losing seasons followed, marked by uninspired play and little fight. After 5 years, the team was still in search of a winning season and an identity. They would find both in season 6, when a player known as the Hammer came to town.
When Schultz got to the Flyers, it all changed. He became the hunter.
His mouth would twitch and his eyes would get big.
It was like a lion going into the den, and there was the red piece of meat.
Schultz is hammering Dunn. Schultz continues to flail away with the right hand. Schultz is now going to the midsection. Schultz trying to get him at long range so he can start pumping the uppercut. Now the right free, and now he's getting the better of it.
Well, Schultz's aim in his hockey life is quite obvious.
We had the baddest animal in the hockey jungle, and never even had a fight before he turned pro.
I was a goal scorer, believe it or not. Rarely fought. It wasn't until I got sent to the Eastern Hockey League by the Flyers in my first year at the end of training camp that I started fighting. I got in a fight my first game, I got in a fight my second game, and all of a sudden I was Sergeant Schultz. So I'm sure the Flyers were going, what's this Schultz doing down there? And what was I to do except come to the Flyers and continue my ways? I became this guy that fought like crazy. If you want to try to intimidate one of the better skating players, more skilled, you better turn around because someone's coming after you. Somebody had to do it, and I did it.
He took on all of the players on all of the teams that used to beat us up and beat them up.
Here's back at you.
It was an amazing thing to watch.
Schultz has his right hand frame, coming around with the roundhouse right.
When you get hit by a Dave Schultz right, he's going to break your bones.
And that can be uplifting to a team. Let's have some fun. We used to play and fight and then win, and then we'd go drink their beer.
Dave the Hammer Schultz immediately earned a reputation as the most ferocious Flyer, smashing records for number of fights and time in the box. Feared throughout the league, the Hammer's goonish ways proved contagious.
It made all of our players play with a little bit bigger balls. A little bit more nerve and a little bit more aggressive.
Parisian Dupont! Parisian Dupont!
We can have more policemen than anybody. Who said you only had to have one?
The scene I envision is in Blazing Saddles. Every ugly criminal in world history is applying to be part of the posse.
We're not going to let just Schultz beat the living daylights out of these guys. Now it's our turn.
Whenever the game was dull, just send out Bob Kelly, and he would liven things up.
I called him Machine Gun Kelly.
See how fast he throws.
He could throw 30 punches to your one.
He was a windmill, a whirlwind fighter.
Kelly jumped on him before Butler even knew he was coming.
I always had lots of energy, so I like to expand it, and it's nothing like driving somebody's head through the boards to make you feel good.
We just happened to be better than anybody else, and we were able to beat up everybody else if we had to.
The game has been played a long time with fighting as a major element of the game. It never really was thought of as anything unusual.
There was nothing premeditated about it. It was just people in crazed search of the Stanley Cup.
But things were different for the Flyers. What the Flyers did that no other team had previously done was win through intimidation. They really made fighting a tactic. People knew right away that this was something different.
It was all part of the game plan. It was all part of the strategy. We're just going to go out and annihilate people. And by annihilating them, we're going to render them ineffective, and that's how we're going to win. And it worked.
Midway through the 72-73 season, when it became clear that nearly every Flyer game would feature a steady stream of fisticuffs and uncurbed mayhem, the club earned its fabled nickname from local sports scribe Jack Chevalier and headline writer Pete Caffone.
And there they go. And they've battled.
The Broad Street Bullies tallied an incredible 600 more penalty minutes than did the second most penalized team. The fist-first foursome of Dave the Hammer Schultz, Bob Hound Kelly, Don Big Bird Selesky, and Andre Moose Dupont combined for nearly 900 penalty minutes, more than the team totals for 6 of the league's clubs. But it wasn't all welts and bruises that marked Philly's first winning season. The physical play opened up a previously unseen flow of offense, as 5 Flyers scored 30 or more goals, including Cowboy Bill Flett with 43 and Rick McLeish with 50. The franchise also won its first playoff series, highlighted by Gary Dornhofer's overtime goal against Minnesota.
He comes back. Dornhofer.
A storied moment for a team still writing its history. The Flyers had altered their image from expansion pushovers to established aggressors. And by the time camp opened the following year, they had also changed their fortune. Sensing a dependable goalie was the final piece to the puzzle, General Manager Keith Allen traded for a familiar face. Talented but raw Bernie Parent had been shipped away 2 years earlier. he'd returned to the Flyer net in '73, a polished gem.
And he came back to us, the new and improved Bernie. So it was like, oh, gee, here we go, boys. Every day in practice, piss us off. We couldn't score on him.
You scored on him in practice, he'd fire a puck at you. I mean, he was that intense.
Without question, he was the missing link, but Bernie was different in a wonderful kind of way. Fun, loving, and zany, and off the wall.
Well, he was half crazy. You know, I say half crazy, but he wasn't. He was all crazy.
He always had to have his nap in the afternoon with his German Shepherd dog. He loved to smell things. If you bought a new pair of shoes, oh my God, he was all over you. Oh, I love the smell of new leather. I mean, he'd have his nose in your shoes. I mean, what?
I'm a firm believer in life that if you're happy, happy things will happen to you.
Who you hitting?
The Three Stooges kept me happy, that's for sure. I still watch them today.
Come on.
It is a beautiful thing.
The same could be said of Perrant's goaltending. Playing in all but 5 of Philly's games, his 1.89 goals against average and 12 shutouts led the league in '73-74. And his NHL record 47 wins stood for 33 years. Bernie Perrant was the last line of defense on a team built to do more than just brawl.
We intimidated everybody, and it wasn't just dropping the gloves.
They largely won by outworking teams. The most relentless that I've ever seen.
They weren't all bloody riots. They won a lot of games on skill.
You get guys like McClish and Barber. They were offensive machines. Eddie Van Imp, the Watson brothers, Bladen, Barry Ashby, those guys were solid, ultra-competitive guys.
Terry Crisp or Kinderchuk.
Ross Lonsbury never gets enough credit for us. Like, he would score 30 goals a year and be plus 50.
Even the guys that were out there fighting were talented. Dave Schultz had 20 goals one year.
The goalie had no chance. I'd say, don't feel bad, because, I was a sniper.
You could be the Broad Street Bullies, you could be the Joe Bellino Bullies, you could be anybody you want. Unless you have the talent, you're not going to win. Period. And they had the talent.
We would not only go in and beat the shit out of their hockey team, but we beat them on the scoreboard too.
Before long, the Spectrum was sold out night after night. If anyone appreciated the fine line between talent and terror the team was skating on, it was Philadelphians. Not much had come easy to the city of late, and the Flyers' gritty brand of hockey struck a chord. They were the perfect antidote for a city longing for a lift.
If you look at the time and what happened in this country in the 70s, Philadelphia was one that was hit hard economically. Philadelphia really felt its pain. And of course, they were a city of losers. The Eagles had one championship, and that was in '60. The Phillies hadn't won a World Series coming off of 1964, where they had the dramatic collapse.
Sixers had won the title in '67, and then Wilt Chamberlain was traded. So the Sixers went downhill, and things were so bad that they liked harness racing here.